My name is Thorsten Overgaard. I'm a Danish photographer. I travel the world taking photographs and teaching photography. Today I'll talk about being a fly on the wall. You probably heard the expression being a fly on the wall, and in many ways for me that is the essence, that is the most joyful thing about being a photographer, to be part of an event, actually not be in the event, but be the observer of it and the one recording it. Below the video here is a link to a free ebook you can download right now. You can even stop the video right now, so you make sure that you download the book. It's free and it's about some of the greatest photographers, how they photographed, why they photographed and what they photographed, and the history of photography. And also I tell something about why do I photograph and how do I do it. One of the things I realize is my favorite thing about being a photographer, and that is being the fly on the wall. And that's an old expression, it's a 100-year-old expression. Somebody mentioned it the first time and now it's an idiom, and it simply just means that you are the observer of something. And of course there's many ways you can be a photographer. You can have a studio and you can have people come in and you can be very noisy and everything. But my preferred way of photographing is actually to be a fly on the wall. And if we take one of the famous ways of being a fly on the wall is here being a White House photographer. And this is a book, I really like this one. This is about the Bill Clinton years, and it's sort of like an ideal for me. I would love to be a White House photographer because the very unique thing about being a White House photographer is that you get to attend all events. The White House photographer is one of the person that he can go anywhere. He sort of doesn't exist, but if the president is sitting and working or having a meeting, the White House photographer can actually just walk in and take photos, and it's totally okay. That's how it has been with most presidents, and definitely with Bill Clinton. It also tells you, it's very interesting, because if you take this book, The Clinton Years, you can get it on Amazon and elsewhere. Robert McNeely is the one that was the photographer. He tells elsewhere about how it was to be the White House photographer. And one of the things, for example, he tells about is that when the Russian president came to the White House, they were in the Oval Office, and there was all the press and everybody takes photos and ask questions and so on, and then okay, now everybody goes out. Now Clinton and the Russian president is going to have a private meeting. And they sit in front of the fireplace, and McNeely, the White House photographer, is sitting apart from them, taking photographs. And they're about to start the meeting, everybody left the room, and then the Russian president looked at the White House photographer, and he's like, "Get out of here." And McNeely looks at Clinton, and Clinton says, "No, you stay." And that's what he did. And that is the unique thing of being a White House photographer, that nobody else gets to ever see or hear what the two presidents are talking about, because they're doing it alone, except if you're a White House photographer. So that's a great thing. Also, what he tells elsewhere is that one of the ways that it works is that you're not there, but you are there. That means that Clinton knows, the president knows that the White House photographer is there and taking photographs. And it also implies that the subject, which is the president and the people around him, wants to be recorded for history, and they know they're going to be portrayed in a way so it's going to look good. And that, you can say, Clinton, he's the perfect person for that. I wouldn't say he's an entertainer, but he is in the role of a president, and he also is trying to make a legacy about his presidency and his political life and what have you. And you will see here, if you get this book, you will see a lot more photos. To put it in contrast, here is another book that he also did. So this is one they did much later when Hillary was running for office. Then basically McNeil had to scrape the cutting room floor and see what do I have of pictures of Hillary. And then he found some pictures of Hillary, and I would say that when I look through this book, then what is very obvious is that a lot of the photos have the President Clinton in focus. And a lot of the focus, actually Hillary is out of focus because she's not the center of attention. She's the first lady. So in a lot of the cases, it's about the president and Hillary just happens to be around. There's one great photo that is where she's moving around the furniture in the Oval Office when the meeting is ending. And it's kind of like a joke. But it's one of the photos where McNeely actually took intentionally a photo of Hillary. And of course, there's a few others. There's also the interesting thing about this book about Hillary is that what McNeely tells elsewhere is that while Bill Clinton was very eager to be photographed, or not very eager, but he was like in on it, like it's part of what he's doing. He's on stage, he's being photographed, he's going into history books. Hillary, not so much. She actually didn't like to be photographed, and where the White House photographer could walk into any room where Bill was and could take photos of him on an airplane, whatever, and he was aware he was taking photos, but he didn't mind, and he would even forget him. Then Hillary was very uneasy when he came in with the camera, and she didn't like to be photographed. So that's the difference, and that's actually something you can also see in the photos. And as I said, I would love to be a White House photographer, and I actually have applied a few times to some people when there was different campaigns. And I never got close to it. Obama does follow me on Twitter, but that's the closest I got to becoming the White House photographer for Obama. That would have been interesting. And I learned during Trump, I did photograph Trump also, as not as a fly on the wall. In a sense, you could say, because I was not part of the press pool, I was put on a table, actually the chair closest to where he was speaking, and he happened to just point at me, and that's the shot I got. And I was testing a 75mm log, so that was like excellent, great photo. But I did also visit the White House a couple of times, and one of the times I went, it was a very exclusive visit, late at night, and there was just 4 people. 2 of them worked in the White House, and we get name tags on by the guard or the gate, and my tag is different than everybody else's. And I asked, why is mine different? Why is it different? Why is it, I forgot, it's a different color or something, but it's obvious this is not the same tag as the other people. 2 of them worked there, I don't, but the 3rd person doesn't work there. Why is mine different? And then we asked somebody and they said, no, that's because you're foreigner. Other 3 people are Americans, so they can go whatever they want. You are foreigner, so you cannot go just around alone. You have to have somebody American following you. So that was what my name tag meant, and it also explains why can I not be a White House photographer. Well, obvious, you cannot trust a foreigner to photograph, and you can say it's a little bit ironic. Why would you trust an American just because they're American? But that's how it is. And you could say that also, if I look back at all the times I've been in nearby the Prime Minister in Denmark, or in the Prime Minister's office in Denmark for press conferences and everything else, and also traveling to African countries, I am trusted because I'm Danish. It's not very difficult to get a press card or to get access when you're Danish. I'm sure if you're from certain countries or just from outside Denmark, even you're Swedish, which is the neighbor country, it's not the same access. So anyways, that goes my possibility of being the White House photographer. Then I can look at, could I be photographing the Pope or somebody else? That would be interesting. And I really like to be nearby history. I like to be near unique people, and that's often what you're dealing with. On Clinton, I actually did photograph him a couple of times. One of them was in the Faroe Islands, well, it's not in Denmark, it's like out in nowhere, the Faroe Islands, doesn't matter. But he came there to speak, and I happened to be, me and a writer that I worked with were doing a story for the biggest Danish magazine, and we happened to book ourselves into the same hotel as Clinton would be in. And that was very interesting because everybody else, all other press was in other hotels. We were the only press that was in that hotel. And that gave us a little bit unique position because we are guests in the hotel, so they can't really kick us out. But if we were press, they would definitely kick us out at certain times. So when Bill Clinton arrived to the hotel, we were just sitting basically in the lobby in a window, big panorama window with a view to the entrance and drinking espresso. And there comes Clinton. so of course we go out and do our thing and take pictures. And it's very much my character and my role that I'm not diving into it. It's very interesting when Clinton comes about, journalists, mothers, office workers, everybody is just forgetting everything about who they are, and then they want to take a selfie with Clinton and they want to shake his hands or they want to be nearby him, and that's the photo you can see, like everybody is just raving crazy. And my role and what I like is to just take a step or two back and be the observer of this. That's much more interesting. I don't know, it's just in my DNA that I really like this, to step back and look at it from outside. I actually don't want to shake Bill Clinton's hand. I don't want to have his signature. I don't want to have a selfie with him. There was a funny occasion later, I think it was the day after, Clinton walks through the city of Tórshavn and it's packed with people. And that's just a Clinton thing. Everybody wants to meet Clinton. And of course there's Secret Service from Denmark and the US. You could say Denmark is not Secret Service, but it's the Secret Police, and they work with Secret Service, so it's packed with police and it's packed with just floods of people. And one of the unique things that my writer Oliver Stilling noticed, because he's very much like me, he has like actually a pen and paper and he just observes things and he makes down notes. But mainly he has observed and remember what was the atmosphere, and then he writes down a few notes of things, names and stuff he have to remember. Very unique way of doing it. And one of the things he noticed was it was completely quiet when Clinton walked through the streets. There's thousands of people, but people were just quiet and looking at Clinton. So anyways, the funny thing is that I'm following on the grass. There's a lot of people and Clinton is walking up, and of course he shakes hands with everybody. That's just what he does. It's a great great thing. And I'm walking behind the people so I can photograph down when a kid is taking a photo with his cell phone of Clinton and stuff like that. And then I get to a point like 50 meters up or something, he's turning around the corner and I'm moving so close, kind of like to take a photo down at him with a 28mm or something like that, 24mm. And then Clinton looks at me and he shakes my hand. And he has so much intensity, so I just give him my hand. And I'm like, why did I shake his hand? Well, it was actually him shaking me, because he was just shaking everybody. So that was like as close as I got to the action. Apart from that, he was doing a speech, and the one photo I wanted of him, well, I didn't know before I arrived what kind of photo I wanted, but I wanted something that was significant. And I figured, okay, I'm going to be on the balcony, and I'm going to put a camera on a monopod, and then I want this spotlight on him and this red backdrop, and then the silhouettes of people. I want a photo that is significant, where he's doing some kind of gesture, and somehow everything, it makes it look like it's an important moment. And that's basically a photo that I probably sat half an hour or an hour in that spot before he actually came on to speak, and I sat another hour almost with cramp to just get that photo. Of course, I took like a lot of different photos of the same scene, but I picked one that's the one that was the photo that illustrated that. And I had other things with Clinton. You could say I was inside the hotel. I didn't really take photos of him walking in the hallways. That's not a historic moment. It's just a guy walking in the hallway, so I didn't do that. I think I took a photo of him signing a Harley Davidson. Somebody had put a Harley Davidson in the hotel and asked Clinton if he could sign it, and he did. And I think I took a photo of that because I was just next to when he did it, or maybe I just looked at it. And then I also had, when we were roaming around in the city, he went to a Danish or a very fashion store to buy some knitwear for his wife and his daughter, and I was in the store also and took photos of that. But again, like, I'm actually not saying anything, I'm just in the background, I'm just taking the photo of whatever is happening. Maybe nothing is happening, then there's no photos, but if there is an expression or something, it's going to be a great photo. And as the decoration on top of the cake, I had when Clinton was walking through Tórshavn city with all those thousands of people, it's getting to an end, and I can kind of tell that almost like he is, and also Secret Service is looking like, where are we going now? You know, we're getting to the end of it, like here's a parking space, a little mall. And then I see a coffee bar. And I knew from when Clinton visited Denmark some years before that he did a speech in the center of Copenhagen, and then he walked through the city, and then he walked into a coffee place because he likes coffee. He's a good guy, he likes coffee, like me. So I saw there's a coffee place, and I just ran over to this inside the coffee place. I was the first person in there, and I just thought there's a great chance either the event is over and he's gonna hop in a car and drive away, or maybe he comes into the coffee place. And sure enough, Clinton walks into the coffee place. I'm not the only guy in there. There's two ladies making coffee or manning the store, selling cakes and coffee. And in walks Clinton with two security guys, or three security guys from Secret Service. And I'm there with, I had my light, Diglux 2 at that point, nice little quiet camera. And I take some photos. Of course, he shakes the hands of the two ladies in there, and he talks to them, small talks with his very distinct voice. And I take photos. And then I can feel like the Secret Service guy, he's like kind of pulling me. And he's like, you have to get out of here. And then, because I read this book, I think, before that, so I look at Clinton, and Clinton said, no, it's okay, he can stay. But nonetheless, Secret Service thinks otherwise. It just kicked me out of the room. So I just got I got a few not amazingly great photos. Of course, I would have hoped to have time to set up and make like a real iconic photo. But it was a very interesting moment. The essence of being a fly on the wall is almost when you photograph royals. At least that's how my experience has been, because I photographed quite a few royals, and I photographed the Queen of Denmark, Margrethe II, a few times, also times where we were alone in the room and so on. And it's very interesting that, well, you can say one thing is royals are it's a special level because it's for life, and not all countries have them. So Denmark have to have a very nice queen that is very friendly, very wise, and she is an artist and many things. And her dad was also a great guy. He was the guy when the Germans occupied Copenhagen. He was the guy who rode on his horse through Copenhagen every day to just show the Germans, I'm still here. You might have occupied the country, but I'm here. So that's the kind of style of it. And then we also have crown princes that have ties to Australia. And there's a lot of the Danish royal family that have links indirectly to Germany and so on. So bottom line is that any photo you take of a royal, a lot of people in Australia, New Zealand and those places, they love to look at those photos. A lot of people in Germany and also Spain. And I mean, royal is a big thing, and you could say also in UK, but they have the sort of own royal family in a funny way. And you could say royal just beats Hollywood, almost presidents in a different way. So it's just a very interesting thing to take. But here's where it's different, because, for example, I was doing a story with Queen Margrethe in a museum. So the museum had made, well, they made a whole city, but they made specifically one apartment that was 1964. So that means that all the interior, the furniture, everything is 1964. So the Queen comes to see this as a private visit. So she comes to see this, and the museum director and a few of the other people from the museum, and they're actually going to sit in the apartment and have coffee and homemade cake, or everything is like 1964. And I'm the only photographer in the room, so I'm the only person moving around. And I'm using some of the photos, I'm using a 21mm. And somehow, the moment when the Queen lights up a cigarette, because she likes to smoke, and it's very real in the way that you cannot smoke in this museum. They have smoke detectors all over the place, but when the Queen comes, they turn off the smoke detectors and they put on an ashtray. So that is one of the benefits of being royal. You can do whatever you want to. So the Queen lights up a cigarette, and of course, somehow I don't know, I like this thing because it's very her. She is at that point getting close to 80 years old. She's very much in the spirit. She's very much a young woman. And then this thing, she lights up a cigarette. So I'll move in rather close with my 21mm to grab this table and the whole atmosphere from different angles. And of course, the thing is, you are a fly on the wall. You're not supposed to be there. So of course you're not going to do anything. You're not going to make noise. You work quietly. You move slowly. I go hang in against the wall or in a corner, or even walk out to the kitchen or somewhere else for a little bit, and then come back in and I can do something. So you have to kind of fall into the role of being a fly on the wall, that you're not there, even obviously you're there and everybody knows. But here comes the great thing of being a fly on the wall with a royal or with the Queen of Denmark, and that is that when you are there, you're really not there. So for example, a little bit later that day in the same apartment, the Queen is looking around at the furniture and some of the stuff, and she's looking at the flowers. And she takes some of the pottery, she turns it around to see who made this, because of course she's into all kinds of history and all kinds of understanding things, so she wants to see who made the pottery. And I'm there with a 35mm, so I'm actually really close, and it's almost like I have to look through the viewfinder, but also know she's walking this way, so I have to take my photo and get out of the way, so I'm not there, you know. And that is the rule. It's like I cannot ask her, can you do that again, or could you move a little bit over here? I can definitely not touch her. So in that way, it's very fly on the wall when you deal with royals, because you are not there. You don't talk to the royals. Of course, I mean, there can be other things where she will crack a joke or say something, but it's a different role. It's kind of like you get outside of the role that she's doing this, I'm doing this, and we're not connected. And of course, we both know the other person is there. And you could say she has, of course she has, some of the same thing as Clinton, that she knows she's been recorded for history, and she likes that role, and she wants to look good, and she knows how she looks. But in the same way, royals don't pose. They don't smile if they don't feel like. I mean, they will fall asleep in the chair if they feel like it, and then that's what you get. So in that way, it's different, but it's still a willingly subject. So in that way, you could say it have all the things of being a fly on the wall to the extreme when you're dealing with royals. So the great thing about photographing royals is also they don't act for you, for real. They kind of do, but they don't. They basically don't give a heck if you get the photo or not. It's your problem. And for example, when I remember one time I was following the Queen, and I'm like, she's walking through the street, there's just very few people. And it's again like I'm not there, but I'm there. And it's not even like she pretends she recognizes me or anything, it's just, I'm not there. I love it, it's great, that's how it's supposed to be. So I'm kind of like walking backwards and trying to see, okay, now there's gonna be a photo opportunity here, so I have to be there when the moment she comes. But then maybe she changed direction, or maybe she stopped, or maybe she does something, you know. And then she would suddenly, because she's like a young girl inside, she's really very lively. So she'll walk, and then she'll make fun, she'll run over to the fence and look through a hole in the fence. And then I have to get the photo, or I don't get it. I don't really feel I got it, but I did get something, of course. And there's another instance also where we are looking at an old telephone central in the same museum, and the queen is making fun with the phone and so on, and I'm just like, I have to move up to the wall and get far enough away so I can actually grab this photo. And there's also, I'm working at 800 ISO or something, there's not a lot of light. So that's a great training in how to predict things, and you have one chance to get it. If you don't get it, it's just too bad. You cannot ask them to do it again. And that's how it is with most things in life. So in that way, it's a good training in being a fly on the wall and doing reportages or doing photographs of life without being part of it. The great thing about being a fly on the wall is that you actually get to see everything that's going on. You actually get to see more than people normally see when they participate, because you observe everything and you observe every detail. You also try to prevision what's going to happen next and what is there of opportunities. Should I be over there, or where should I go? And this idea of being a fly on the wall, you could say that also applies to street photography. People often ask me when they see my photos, do you ask permission first? And I never really ask permission. Never is maybe a little bit too much, because sometimes you have to ask permission. You could say if you're right in somebody's face, or it's going to stir them up or make them confused or angry or afraid that you take a photo, then you have to make the decision, okay, I'm going to ask that pretty girl walking down the street or this old lady sitting on the bench, can I take your photo, because it's going to be so obvious that you're taking a photograph. So in those cases I would do it, and sometimes it ruins it because people try to behave in a certain way or something, and actually what I wanted is the moment I just saw before they knew about me. So that is the ideal situation for me, is that people don't know that I'm there. And I managed to, and it doesn't matter if I'm wearing hats or orange camera straps or whatever, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. I'm able to see something, somebody sitting by a table outside a cafe, or somebody walking on the street, or two people sitting and talking on a bench. I'm able to walk pretty close to them, almost straight in their face, and they don't see that I'm there. And I think that has something to do with, it's an attitude. I don't want to disturb, I don't want it to interfere, I don't want to ruin the moment, I want to capture it as it is. So that's, you could say it's very much alike. You could say often when you are a fly on the wall and it's really great, you have a subject that agree that you're there and they know you're there, but they're pretending that you're not there. So they're not looking at you, they don't look at the camera. I mean, people have this idea, that's an interesting thing. People have this idea that they can be photographed in a natural situation and then they can peek at the camera. But it doesn't work, because if you look at the camera is going to capture that you're looking. So it's not like you're looking this way, but you're looking at the camera. It doesn't work. So I ideally want to just sneak in, take the photograph and walk away again, and they never notice I'm there. Sometimes I'd go in, I take the photo, and then they look at me like, what are you doing? And sometimes they're just like, yeah, that's cool. They don't care. Sometimes if they look mystified, I'll go explain them, I'm just taking photos, and you look pretty or whatever, and then that's the end of it. So that works very well. And but I think one interesting thing is there's your attitude, and of course there's the subject's attitude. So if your attitude and my attitude is that I don't want to be part of it, I don't want to chit chat, I don't want the subject to make faces or make a comedy for me or pose or something, just do your thing, because that is what I'm here to photograph. That is the real life that I want to capture. And you could say that could also be used in a family setting, that you want to take photographs of your kids or somebody else's kids, your friends' kids, or your spouse or friends or working colleagues. You want them to just act naturally. There is one way to do that, and that is to just have a camera, always wear a camera. For example, I had one funny story from Tokyo, that I had a guy, he worked as a lawyer in a bank. So they had board meetings are similar to board meetings, where they meet, it's very official, everybody's, you know, and then you talk, and then he would have his camera with him and he would take photographs of people. And to begin with, people would be like, why are you taking photographs and so on. But then After a while, they just get used to, that's the guy with the camera and he takes pictures. And the added benefit would be that they would start dressing up for this meeting. They would start looking cool. They would clean up the table so they had the coffee cup, you know, no mess. And they were kind of like pose, but they would stay in character. And that's fundamentally what you want. You want people to stay in character. If you suddenly have somebody in the frame that see you and they make, you know, all kinds of gestures, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work for me. That's the worst thing that can happen, is that people want to interact with me and make a show out of it. I love to be part of an event. I don't have to small talk with somebody next to me. I can leave whenever I want to. I can go to the other part of the room. I can do whatever, and I'm still part of it, and I get to capture all of what is of essence in that room, and that's excellent. That's perfect. That's how I like to photograph, and you could say that is maybe what goes again. And even when I do portraits, I don't want the person, I don't instruct people to smile or anything. I want them to be themselves, and I look for the moment where they're really themselves and they're just hanging there. And then sometimes I will say something to them and maybe get some sort of reaction because maybe it is needed there. But generally the ideal portrait session is the person just sits and do their own thing, almost like a child sitting and drawing, and they forget the world around them. That's the beautiful moment, and that's basically always what I'm looking for. And that is the historic moments, that's the true moment. So that's all I had to say today about photography, and I hope that inspired you. The idea of being a fly on the wall versus maybe lining people up and having them jump or smile or whatever, or do makeup. All the other types of other photography you can do. The one that is closest to my heart is definitely fly on the wall, not being noticed, but being there at the most essential part of the events. As always, there's a link below the video with free stuff, so look there. And till I see you next time, remember to always wear a camera.